7th meeting of the Bloomington Technology Commission to order. And we'll start with a roll call. Gary Numera is here. Jennifer Brown.
Here.
Robert is not here. Jamie is not here. Ravi DeBerg. Eric Fisher.
Here.
Okay, and Eric is attending in person at City Hall.
Correct.
Not present is Jacob Ultrich. And from the city, we've got Craig McBeath and Mark Owens.
Robert's here now, by the way.
Oh, there he is. Roll call. Robert?
Present.
Okay, good. Craig, do we have any public comments?
No, we have no public comment for today.
Okay. So did everyone get the minutes from the February 3rd meeting and have a chance to look at those?
Should be March 3rd.
Oh, yeah. I'm looking at the. I had one question, Craig, on the
Yes.
Third page, the second line. Is that date correct? It's under item B, IT strategy, but it's on the third page.
It is not. That should be the 19th.
19th, that's what I thought. That's the only comment I have.
We can get that corrected.
Any other comments?
No.
Okay. Can I entertain a motion from someone that we accept the,
Motion to accept minutes as corrected.
I vote aye.
I'll second that too.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I missed that. Sorry. Jennifer seconds. I vote aye. Eric?
Aye.
Jennifer?
Aye.
Robert?
Aye.
Ravi?
Aye.
Motion passed. Okay. On to our regular agenda. So the work plan, studies, privacy and data policies. Ravi or Mark, any updates there? I have nothing.
No.
The only thing I'll add to that is I've been meeting with Jack McQueen from the Bloomington Police Department just this week. He wanted to go over some of the guidelines that the state of Illinois came out with in January 2020. And it was basically around record retention. So it was more of an informative meeting, and I can recap that and send it out to our subcommittee if you'd like.
That'd be great.
Yeah, please. Okay, moving on to city infrastructure. Ravi, do you have any updates there? I do not.
I do not either, no.
And Jamie is not here, so we'll table that for now. And then the next item is the IT strategic plan. So, Craig, do you want to?
Yeah,
take
we'll
that?
get started on that. So I did send out with the minutes from last month, I sent out the strategic plan presentation that we're going to be presenting, at least the draft presentations that we'll be presenting to council. There's one, the full presentation will be included in the packet, I think, and part of the record. The presentation that I will be doing for city council, of course, will be the executive presentation, which is a very slimmed down version. They're not going to give me the time I need to go through all 77 slides of the other one. So, what I'm asking for is some insight into first content on both presentations to see if there's any corrections that you found or anything that maybe needs to be clarified or emphasized more than it was, and we'll go through kind of those presentations a little bit. Maybe not every slide, but where you have questions, we can elaborate on those. But then really hone in on the executive summary presentation to see how we can roll that up into 10, 12, 15 slides, maybe at the most. I don't know what time limit I'm going to have for my presentation yet. I think it's probably going to be a 15-minute presentation. So that's still going to be pretty tight to get all the information we need covered. It's been a process that Mark and I and some of the staff members or commissioners have been part of here and there for the last 8 months now. And we've got a lot of diagnostic reports, a lot of studies, and just trying to wrap that up into a presentation that makes sense to us, obviously first, but then also is able to be conveyed, that message is able to be conveyed to city council and everybody that's listening. I did get an email from Jacob that he did bring up a couple questions and points that I wanted to kind of touch on, maybe to get us started. Let me see if I can pull that up here. So his first question is regarding the term stakeholder, which we have talked about internally as well. There's unfortunately, where we're going off of some general templates and there's a general sense of just overall use of legalese. So trying to, bring that into just a term or a sense that this is, a working document for everybody. Stakeholder in that instance is going to be not only directors, but city staff and city council and really area partners. It could even extend to vendors. So that's kind of the reason I think for the term stakeholder. And I'm not sure, what else I could do there. Certainly open to ideas to make sure that that's not confusing, because we've heard that a couple times already. So obviously it is to a certain degree, but didn't know if anybody else had any experience with that on maybe a different term that we should be using, or should I just have a slide up front that explains, what the term stakeholder is in this instance, if that would be enough or not. Any thoughts there?
I think stakeholder works as a word, but maybe having that explanatory slide would help.
Okay. I mean, did anybody else get the sense that it's too rigid or too legal in the definitions of those different slides that are going through? I mean, I don't want it to be that way, but sometimes it just has to be.
I think some of us have sat through too many meetings to really care about the word stakeholder anymore. It just flows off our back like water.
Okay.
It didn't bother me at all when I saw it there.
Okay.
But I can see, sorry, go ahead.
Okay. Well, that's good. I mean, I think having that definition up front, and kind of, I don't know if there's any other definitions that you guys picked up on that maybe I need to clarify, before I get further into the presentation, to kind of head off any confusion or questions that the council may have.
So Craig, so I did like a fairly quick review, and I have notes and stuff. But when do you need like a final? Because maybe I've got a few questions that might color some of my other feedback depending on the answer. So when would you need a final copy ready?
Honestly, probably I'm going to need the presentation done and submitted by either the 13th or the 14th, so a week from today.
Okay.
I actually have a meeting that I'm trying to get scheduled with our advisor to kind of go over those final changes and kind of talk about the presentation and the flow of that presentation. He will be attending the city council meeting as well. Should there be any questions, directly for him. But
Is
he's
that
going to
the-
really either. That's going to be Rocco. I don't know
The
if you-
infotech guy?
He is, yes, our infotech advisor that's been walking us through this blueprint. So yeah, any thoughts or questions you have now, certainly I'm open to taking those. And then, if you've got any more, I'm willing to accept any and all feedback whenever you get it.
Just to clarify, Craig, you're specifically talking about the executive presentation, not the strategic.
Either or.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. Let me ask though, silly question. So on the strategic presentation, you've got 50 slides, 70 slides. I mean, so you're not going to actually present that though. Okay.
Yeah.
Just making sure.
Yeah, no, the executive summary is the one that we're going to be basing off the city council presentation. So part of what I need to do and need some help with, and hopefully I'm going to get that from Rocco next week as well. But how best do I summarize the 77 slides and get it into 10, 15 slides? I think I've got a fairly decent start, but I want to make sure I'm not missing anything critical with that.
So Craig, a couple like just kind of high level things. So in the strategic deck that had 50 some or 60, can't remember how long it was, but I noticed that we had like the target state of IT ahead of the current state of IT in the order, which I mean, I get you're trying to like get it out there of like, this is what we're trying to accomplish. And then here are the things that, where we stand today. And I'd be interested to know anyone else's opinion on this, but do you think it makes more sense from like a flow perspective to have like, here's where we're sitting today, but here's where we'd like to go by 2023?
Yeah. No,
So-
I think we can go either way on that. I'm not sure that there was a conscious decision on putting one before the other, target before current. I think we did it that way just because we understood our target state more than the current state better, and that's what we started with.
Okay.
So I agree. I think having maybe current state ahead of target state would be better.
Okay. And then for the executive summary, I was struggling a little bit to know like what story are we trying to tell? Like what do we want council to come away with? Like what do we want their takeaways to be from that presentation that you're giving? Like well, I guess that's just a question for you. Like what do we want? What do we want that story to be?
That's a great question. So I would expect the executive summary to really be about what an IT strategy is, to make sure that they understand, what it is we're trying to do and what we have done over the last 8 months, to pull all this together. Basically why it's important that we have an IT strategy. What do we get from having an IT strategy? And then probably go in and dip into, the desired state of our IT department. And what we need to be looking at in 2023 if we fully go through the IT strategy the way we've outlined it. And then it's going to really give us a roadmap, and then it really is going to define, the key takeaways. What is it that we're truly going after, and there's no vote for city council on a presentation and opportunity for them to ask questions or ask for any more information that they need, so they have a better understanding of truly what it is the IT department does for the city of Wilmington. Because I think that's important. It's something that we have not been able to tell our story very well in the past, and as you and Eric said in the next diagnostic, which is the IT staffing diagnostic, that keys off of the strategy is we've got some asks that are coming up that are pretty big asks when we start talking about positions or staffing methods. And we need the data to back that up, and we need prioritized lists of projects and initiatives to be able to back that up. So that's truly what I'm trying to get out of the executive summary presentation.
And Craig, as I was going over this, and a couple thoughts from a macro level, as I was reading through it, I was thinking, what would the required staffing levels be? And it sounds like that's something you just touched on, and it's not in this document. And the other thing, as I was reading through it, it's like, what would the required budget be to accomplish all this, to get to where you want to get? And then as I came back to relook at it, I noticed here on the table of contents, you've got timeline and budget in there, yet in the detail, that's not there. If you look, you end with the item 6 as the conclusions and next step. So that maybe that needs to just be cleaned up a little bit. But the other thought I had is this looks like a big project. And is there going to be one assigned project manager for the overall project? Or is it going to be broken up into pieces? And the other macro thought I had, or question I had, was it looked like so many of the detail items on the list were well into being addressed, and most of them looked like they were going to be addressed in 2021. So is that a realistic timeline for all of those items to get addressed that quickly? And those are my thoughts.
Yeah, those are all good questions too, Gary. And I'm glad that you noticed that. So we'll go into that a little bit. But I think it's going to be important, and you brought it up with your question, is, what is the scope of the IT strategy? And really, I think I was looking to see if I can find the slide real quick, but it talks, let me see if I can find it. I know it's in here. I'm almost getting confused now where everything's at. But the scope of the IT strategy is at the initiative level. So this strategy is a very high level overview of the IT department. When we talked about IT staffing diagnostics and specific budgets, that really gets into the weeds of each individual initiative. And that this tool will get us to the point where we can prioritize those initiatives to do that work. So, you won't see that level of detail in this presentation or even in the executive summary. But those are definitely good questions. And this gets us to the point where we can research and really vet those. And that's part of what I'm needing to work with Rocco on from Infotech is being able to define, what that scope is and get the wording, that we need that's appropriate for that. Because I know there will be exactly those same questions. The end of the slide or the end of the presentation, I know one of the questions is going to be is how much is this going to cost us? And that's a valid question, but the response really is, we don't know yet. We're going to be diving into these things and making sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing is the first step. Making sure that each IT initiative matches an IT goal, which matches a business goal. So that's the common theme. We shouldn't be doing anything that doesn't directly support the City of Bloomington business goal, one way or another, hopefully multiple ways. So once we define that and then list our priorities, then we can set fiscal year budgets and determine how much we can tackle. So let me scroll down a little bit because I think I didn't update the table of contents. I did update the slide here. So I did take out budget. So right now I'm just talking about timelines. The budget, there was a component in here where we may have been able to put that in there, but again, we weren't able to get to that level of detail yet. But what I was able to define, like you noticed, is all the initiatives that we have. The majority of the top 40 initiatives, are either in flight or starting this year. And that's a concern because, these are projects that are going and we got to do. And how do we do that with the staffing level that we have now? How do we do that with the resources? And thankfully some of these projects are, starting to wrap up here this quarter or hopefully next quarter. So some of these will be falling off. And the most important thing is now when I get new requests or new projects that pop up throughout the year, that I'm going to be able to relate to this timeline and say, okay, where do you see your initiative in this massive list of projects that we have throughout the city? Who becomes priority? Because one of the issues we have now is everybody is priority. We've got so many high priority projects that everything's priority, so nothing's a priority. So really truly being able to lay this out and get approval not only from administration, but some general approval from city council that this is the direction that we want to move to, then we can start really defining that. You mentioned project manager that's in charge of this. That's one of those areas that are going to be covered in the IT staffing diagnostic. We do have PM type positions or portions of a position or fractions of an FTE, that would do exactly that, is focus on project management to be able to keep not only this list of initiatives up to date, but all the sub initiatives. Because even the top 40 that we've identified here that we're working on is just scratching the surface, honestly. There's 3 times that, that we could have put in here that just would have been too much. You couldn't absorb that. There's a number of initiatives or projects inside of each one of these initiatives as well. So
Who will establish your priority list?
how did we establish it? Good question. So we have defined the priority, the top 40 initiatives, and we evaluated it against the city IT goals. So let me roll that up here. Actually, let me start with business goals. So we started by defining the business goals for the city. We've defined them here. We've added some detail on how it relates to IT. And these are all either in the 2024-25 master plan. It's a 20-year master plan that we currently have on the books with some modifications. We took a couple of them and combined them into one business goal and added an innovation piece to that. And this is all through discussion with administration and city manager Gleason. Oh, sorry. Yes.
You heard me. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
For that reason, I would advocate you include this slide with the color code key in the executive one that you present, so they understand what those colors mean. And that you are telling them that those priorities came from you, business operator.
Yeah, and it truly does. So, once we've identified the business goal, and then further down in here, when we get into the target state, we define those business goals. We add in some initiatives that are IT related, and then what are the implications for IT in order to meet that business goal. Then we get into, okay, now we have our IT goals, and each one of these IT goals is in support of a business goal. So again, those are color coded as well. I'll ask you to unmute. Yeah, I've got you muted again. Sorry, Eric. I was just getting feedback on my end.
Does everybody hear that? Does that make sense? I'm sorry. I just would put the key before you start talking about the map, is what I'm saying.
In the map is what?
Well, your parent document that's got the business goals, building strong neighborhoods, being an innovation leader, at least in the deck that I've got, it's slide 7, but you introduced the colors on slide 5. Actually, you do cover them both there. I'm sorry. That's duplicative, but that's good. I was just curious that you were going to introduce the slide, the color scheme, and what those business goals were. before he got into the IT subtopics. That's good.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where I'm getting a little bit lost right now because the executive summary is a little bit out of order, and I want to make sure it matches at least this primary deck. So that way, the business context is defined first, like you said, and then, what is our current state, which has, the IT goals, and then go into how those goals relate to each other. Then, to truly answer your question about how we prioritize those initiatives, we did a simple low, medium, and high evaluation weighted criteria. And that's actually a little bit further down in this slide. Make sure I can find it here. So, we evaluated it against all of the IT goals first. So each IT goal, so all 5 of those had a weighted criteria, and we weighted each one that way. Then we ran that same low, medium, high prioritization scale and rolled all those up. That result, so the high one, the top 25% were high, the middle 50% were medium, and then the bottom 25% were low. We rolled all those up into what we call just a general term strategic alignment. And that was given a 25% rating. And then the additional 4 criteria we added were the actual capacity to execute, the business value, overall business value, if there's risk or mandatory requirements on that, because we're not able to capture that, just with an IT goal. And then, what the cost or if it was actually budgeted for or not. So that was the final weighting, and that's what determined the order of priority, for all 40 of those.
Is this slide going to be in the one you present? Because you might get the question. At least I would expect you might get that weighted question.
Yep.
The other one I thought was pretty interesting in the parent document, the strategy one, is the SWOT one, the current state SWOT. Just as a overview, that one, 31. That's 31, I think. No, 32. I'm sorry. Next one.
32.
That one. As an overview, potentially, because you do have a lot of strengths, a lot of things you guys are doing well. And I would like to at least remind everybody of those things personally.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, I would say if you've got a SWOT, it should be in your executive summary. You always show your SWOT up front.
And I would also advocate, even though you may not know the number, I would at least say, or at least ask, there will be budget requests coming, or I don't know what, but I think at the end, the expectation should be more to come. There's probably money involved, right? I mean, because there is. I wouldn't leave them hanging. I would let them know that you are coming back. You know what I mean? That's just my.
Good. Chatting a couple notes down. So yeah, I think I agree. There's a lot of information in here that build the story, and again, what I'm struggling with is try to figure out at least a little amount of slides that I can pull out that still makes sense and still connect. It's hard not to use some of these other ones on how we compare with other governments and what the themes are from the various diagnostics that we ran, how all the departments feel IT is providing value within the city today, or actually back in July is when we ran this diagnostic. These are all good things that help build that story. Just trying to figure out how to get it done in 15 minutes. The other one that I do want to point out that I do want to use, and I think I've got it in the executive summary already, and this one is important, is showing the IT maturity scale, and describing where we are today realistically. And then this came from a couple different diagnostics, so it's pretty well vetted. But right now we're in between what I would consider unstable and responder. We're providing reliable infrastructure and good service desk, but we're not able to be proactive yet. We're not able to truly partner with the departments to make their lives as efficient as it could be through technology. And then by the end of the strategic plan is we want to be at that partner level. we want to be able to, again, be proactive and do some innovative things, and not only for the city, but the surrounding area, for the state of Illinois, even nationally. That's where we want to be. It's a lofty goal, but we do want to be there, and we have support from administration for that. The really the biggest important step that I want to stress with this is we have to take each rung of the ladder on the way up. You can't skip steps. So we gotta become a good responder, and then we have to get into a trusted operator. And there's things that we have to do, just like you said, Eric, that there's going to be budget requests that follow to get to those steps of the ladder. And that's maybe how I can kind of describe that and show that.
Hey, Craig, one thing I had noted, so I agree that this is a great visual of like where we are and like where we want to go. I think this might, well, if I'm recalling correctly, this might be the only slide where we use that terminology like unstable responder. So you might want to just add a little bit of detail of like where that information's coming from. So like, it came from the IT staffing diagnostic or the surveys or Infotech or, wherever that came from. Because I don't think we use that terminology anywhere else. So it was just a little confusing to tie it back to like, well, where did we come up with this responder phase?
Good question or good thought. Yeah, these terms, they come straight out of the COVID-5 framework, which is and I guess it kind of goes into, should I even explain that? It's a standard national framework for IT strategy and management. But I do agree. I think, how did we get to this point will be important. And I can certainly add that information in here as well. I think.
Or maybe even like a bullet to state, these are these are based off this framework, and like, I guess, how do we know, like, is that framework what Infotech used for our surveys? And then based off our responses to the surveys, that's how they determined we are a responder?
Yes, somewhat. I mean, they didn't come up with the framework. I mean, I think their diagnostic studies provide the answers to fill out, what's needed for that framework. But yeah, I think you're right. I just wanted to point out, I do have 2 maturity scales. So the one we were just looking at is the one that's kind of further down to kind of re-emphasize where we're at, where we want to be. This is actually the first one that pops up. So it's got a little bit more information, but I agree. I think I can fit in, exactly how we got these results in there.
Okay.
And those, honestly, the results that we're looking at here truly came from the CEO, CIO alignment report. And I think maybe I've described that to the group before, but it's a diagnostic report that I filled out and City Manager Gleason filled out. And it really just kind of asks questions about how we feel about IT and importance and just a number of factors. And this data is what was extrapolated from that diagnostic.
All right. You got a mask.
I was thinking kind of to to bridge into this slide or this discussion in the overall in the 47 pager, you have that themes from the stakeholder satisfaction survey. I think that does a really good job of setting up what's going on right now, what all areas feel about IT right now. And that sets your stage for talking about here's where we are and here's what we want to get to, without having to go maybe necessarily into all the details of how it was benchmarked and this and that. You just kind of say, here's the overall, not this one. There was one called themes from it's number 26 in the large file.
Okay.
And I think that just kind of talks about the current state from a way that really bridges like, here's what's going on, here are the things we can improve on, and here's where we go from. And that kind of gets you to your support to innovation type of narrative.
Yeah, and I think what I'll also mention, of course, they will have access to the full presentation that they can go through, and we will be having additional addendums to this, like I mentioned in the email that I have yet to get finished up. But of all those top 40 initiatives, we've provided some additional detail for what it is and why we need it. So that way, when someone sees GIS system upgrade, well, what does that mean, to a city council member or a citizen? What is it, and why is it important for the city to do that upgrade? So I've got a document that Mark did quite a bit of work on, and we're going to finalize that and add that as an addendum as well, so that people have definition to all those, and hopefully field some of those questions ahead of time. Any other thoughts on?
I did have one other thing,
Sure.
minor thing. Hold on just a second. When you go back to the timeline piece, you have some items that are ongoing, but you have some percentage staked out. And I understand conceptually what that means, but would it make sense to mark out where the endpoint of that initial, like if you're at 50%, where do you finish the evaluation stage or whatever that completes 100%, but then you have the ongoing part from there? Does it make sense to block off when you expect the upfront work to be done? So
Yeah.
maybe to denote that.
Yeah, so we can almost do like a solid blue border, maybe around the initial project,
Yeah.
and kind of where we're at in that stage, and then have the ongoing after that. Yeah, that's a good one, Robbie.
Craig, were these light blue boxes filled in on what you sent us? Or just dark blue?
I believe the light blue was.
Oh, it didn't come up on my copy. I only got the dark blue.
Okay.
I looked at it on my Chromebook though, so that may have something to do with it.
It might be Google's version of slides doesn't do it right.
So that changes my observation I made earlier.
I can get you a PDF version of the latest version, so that way maybe that'll come over cleaner.
Nothing, don't do anything special.
And of course, one of the questions that maybe comes up is, what about X or Z? That's maybe not truly identified in this list. How do we handle that? How do we prioritize those initiatives that come up throughout the year? And one of the things I do want to probably maybe highlight is our guiding principles, which is kind of really what we try to strive for, from an IT standpoint, how we view satisfaction and being cost effective, the notion that we try and leverage, existing assets whenever we can. And if we can't reuse, then we procure externally, just kind of general statements with that. I think that may be something that we can include in the executive summary as well, or at least illustrate if that question comes up. Do you feel, that maybe should be part of the slide deck, or any other thoughts there? Or you can just let me know later. And this is where I may be overthinking it and making it more than it needs to be, but I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Not yet. Probably 15 minutes, I think, is what I'm going to have. I can always ask for more. Not that I want to be up there talking for a half hour, but I'm sure I could do it very easily. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Eric, you're on mute. We can't hear you.
Yeah, you're on mute, sorry.
What I was to suggest is that this 15 minutes to cover anything of this density is kind of ridiculous. So I would suggest maybe this is just the high level cut to say, big picture, what we did, what were the big takeaways and issues, where we want to get to, and we're coming back for more requests, et cetera. But by the way, if you'd like to find out more, let's set up another time or times to sit down and go through this in more depth.
Yeah.
I just, the folks who are going to make the decision on yay or nay on funding and whatnot, they're going to need to know more than 15 minutes of input, in my opinion. Need to have them ask questions and kind of own the destination.
The other slides, that I'm not sure how I want to convey yet is, what are the gaps in our capability? Because we certainly have significant gaps, to be able to do some of the work that needs to be done. And this particular slide, what we tried to do is to meet some of the IT goals, identify, what those capabilities are, and then where we are at today. So incident and problem management, as we look through the diagnostic study for all the departments throughout the city, we have been rated very well to have a good service desk. We're tracking incidents very well. We're responding to problems. So that's something that we maybe want to just maintain. Whereas when we get into IT organization design, we really got to work to redevelop that or redesign that. This, tries to pull in those gaps. Obviously, IT strategy is a gap. Service catalogs, are a gap. Those are all pieces that come after the strategy. And being able to identify, okay, what's the next one we need to work on, which in this instance is organizational design. I don't have the staff or resources to do some of the things that we need to do. So either we don't, are not able to do everything that we need to do, or we need to find alternate ways to get staffing or get this work done some other way or outsource it, that kind of thing. So, that organizational design is really the next big step to really define that. And that's where, like Gary mentioned, is that gets into the details. Once we get through that diagnostic, then we're going to know, exactly with data what we need and how much it's going to cost and what that exact timeline is for that specific gap. We'll be doing that for really a lot of these, determining, a service catalog, really truly getting an inventory of systems and services that we offer and what are our SLAs, to meet and making sure that we have all that taken care of. And how are we going to measure performance? What metrics do we need to be watching out for to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the city in an efficient manner as well? Obviously just throwing staff and people and resources, money at this stuff isn't really truly going to solve anything. So we got to make sure that we're doing it correctly too, which is hopefully what we're doing with strategy here.
Well, Craig, is your primary audience for this the city manager or the board, the trustees? And
so another great question, Gary. The primary audience is going to be staff, directors and supervisors and administration. We've been working pretty heavily with City Manager Gleason, Deputy City Manager Tyus on this. They're very supportive of this endeavor and understand the importance as much as anybody at this point. And then getting that message out to all the directors so that way everybody knows, what we're up against and again, where their priorities lie or where there's initiatives lie in this priority list so that everybody's on the same page. So that truly is, the primary audience. Of course, city council is a big piece of that because they're the ones that do, overall control, the direction, initiative, and set the actual business goals of the city. So should those business goals change, we need to be able to reflect and change the IT strategy to meet those as well.
do you know if anybody on the board besides Jamie is familiar with IT systems?
I do not have a decent level of knowledge of who is or isn't
They're not really
knowledgeable in that
particularly
realm.
techy.
Yeah.
None of them are particularly tech savvy.
So yeah, I mean, that's really going to be important, to be able to communicate this in a manner that isn't technical.
I was gonna say this slide is great, but it's dense. It could be 20, 30 minutes in itself. So I would keep this out of any high level. I think you address this in your SWOT. When you talk about the weaknesses, you talk about the specific ones, call out something like the organizational design as something, talk about how you need to engineer and architect it properly. You can't just throw money and people at it. You talk about it at that level and you cover the important points of it. But I think if something this dense is just going to derail, kind of like what Eric and Jennifer were saying about getting that story in the flow,
Yep, I agree. All right. It's really kind of the end of the deck. It talks about, how we're communicating within the city, within the departments. I think, let me go back and make sure, because I know Jacob had a couple other points. And it was, in fact, that it was, how or where in this strategy do we talk about how we're communicating, within the city, to the departments to make sure that we are at a level with them that they're comfortable coming to us, before they need us, basically, that we have a true understanding of the department, true understanding of the system, so we can head off, any possible IT problems that may come, about from maybe something they didn't overlook or something that, just naturally happens with an upgraded system or something like that. A perfect example would be, let's say, we've got a new sewer truck camera video system coming in and replacing the old one, but we have to migrate the data from one to the other. And we're talking about camera video. Obviously, that's very large data that we're moving back and forth. So there's going to be a time where, we almost need to have double the amount of storage space, to get through the upgrade. Well, if that isn't, thought of up front, then that could potentially cause an issue. It's just simple things like that. So, I think making sure that we have an initiative, and it is mentioned in there, it may not be emphasized enough that, part of this communication strategy is meeting with departments on a regular basis, hopefully quarterly, but if not biannually, to have a technical meeting, so that way we understand what's coming up or what's going on throughout the year to kind of head off some of those questions or concerns that they have, and stay ahead of it. Okay. I've got quite a few notes. If you, again, have any written feedback or any other feedback, please send that over to me whenever you can. Like I said, I think at this point, I saw an email. We're trying to get together on the 13th with our Infotech advisor to go over and try and finalize and work out some of the finalized slides. So again, anything you can send me before then would be appreciated. And then again, anytime you have questions or comments, just shoot them over to me. You don't have to wait at this point. Mark, do you have any other thoughts? I haven't went to you yet, or anything that I missed on this?
No, just that I've had some experience going through these types of strategies before, and this is an ongoing thing. This is our first taking this in to get initial approvals, and there's a lot of work that's going to go behind this. This is kind of setting our path for the things that we want to do, and a lot of that is around prioritization, putting the right people in the right place, focusing on the work that aligns directly with the goals of the city. So again, it's not a very easy thing to do. I think Craig had I think he did a great job of putting this together. I started working with him in August when I got here. And any big organization has a strategy to help define the path that they're going on, or they don't have a good path, you know? And so I'm real excited. I think the city manager's been very supportive of what we're doing. And I look forward to it. And I hope you all can support us as well, which I think you're doing a very good job of doing that. And I look forward to being able to, and part of it too, I guess what I didn't mention is, you know, looking at potentially different ways to source our work, not only prioritize it, but are we doing the work in the right manner? Can we find more effective or different ways to source it? And not all of those will end up having to increase the budget. You know, there's a lot of programs and internships and co-ops and things like that we might be able to take advantage of to get the work that we need to get done. So those are the kind of things that we're hoping to look at, and we will be putting costs around those things. But again, it's going to be a kind of a long path that we're going down. So appreciate the support from the commission here.
Thanks, Mark. And you did bring up one point that I do want to make sure that I get included in that executive summary, is that this is fluid. Sorry about that. This is a fluid document. It will change. You know, it's not a one and done, and then you know we revisit in 2024. You know, it's going to be a constantly changing document, especially when we get into the initiatives and prioritization. You know, as projects get completed or initiatives get taken care of, you know, we'll reevaluate at that time. So that will be, I think, something that's important that we need to stress, that, you know, this is our current path as it is today. And even since we started this 8 months ago, you know, it's changed a few times. So, you know, but the point being is, you know, this is the direction we want to go. We want to highlight, you know, the key takeaways and make sure that we stay on track that way. Okay. So that's all I have for that item.
Okay, then let's move on to old business. Any old business anyone like to address? Okay, new business. I think I'd like to mention just one thing there. Has everybody received and completed their statement of economic interests from the county?
Not yet, but we'll do that soon.
It's pretty quick and straightforward, I think, unless you've got something to report.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it should be simple. It is important to get that completed. There are pretty hefty penalties that they're having in their back pocket if we don't get those completed. So appreciate everybody's cooperation to get those done.
I did have one other thing, a point of potential new business just to mention. The My Bloomington app. I know, like, there have been some complaints recently I've heard from people that the iPhone version of the app on newer versions of iOS is not functional. It constantly crashes. And I don't know if it's maintained by the same company that does the Android app or if it's a different one, but that seems to be a common issue for the iPhone. I don't know if that's something we can prioritize or if we need to call out to the vendor.
Yep. So we have known about that issue. We've been working on that issue for honestly a couple months now. And that does not stem from the developer. It's more of an Apple issue. And it was a change with the Apple Store requiring vendors like that to no longer be able to whitelist applications or you know, publish applications on behalf of other institutions. They term that as spam at this point, and they're running into some issues. So what we actually had to do was create a developer account with Apple. We had to get a waiver from them because we're a government organization. We had to prove, you know, that. I had to get legal delegation rights to sign that agreement on behalf of the city. Got through all that paperwork. Once that a developer account was created, then I delegated rights to that app for our vendor to be able to publish on our behalf. Okay. So that was all finished up last week.
Okay.
And honestly, it should not be an issue anymore.
Okay.
So we've tested a couple in-house. I don't remember exactly what the latest version is off the top of my head, but
Okay. Well, that
if you
would make-
double check that.
Yeah, it's mostly over the last couple of weeks I've been hearing this. So if it's been fixed last week, that would probably help. So probably
Yeah.
people haven't been using it if they experienced a problem before that. So
Yeah.
we can let people know maybe that it's been fixed. Don't know if that's something we want to push out there.
And Craig, what's the name of that app?
My Bloomington.
My Bloomington?
Yep. So if you search My Bloomington in either Play Store, all one word, it should be the first app.
Okay,
If you don't have it, download it. It's very awesome.
I will. I just want to add, I did sign up for that billing, that online billing for the water and sewer, and works well.
It's-
Little awkward to sign up for. I can see if you're not real comfortable. So just a little bit, little awkward.
And hopefully
Yeah.
you weren't one of the people that got like one of those $4,000 bills. My parents did and nearly had a heart attack. So
Yeah, we had, I don't remember what the exact number was, but there was, a smaller percentage that went out that had that issue. We tried to reach out and communicate to those both on the website and directly to make sure that nobody got real too upset about it, but some people did. So, and all in all, I think it was a very successful implementation. When you're talking about 35,000 customers, there was a lot to go through there. I think the other issue that kind of popped up late in the implementation was the vendor that we use for that online portal let us know like a week before go live, or maybe it was the week of go live, that citizens would not be able to create their online account until they got their bill in the mail, because then it wouldn't be in the online portal for them to register with. So that also caused some consternation with citizens that thought that they could register, after a certain date, and that was not the case. They had to wait until they actually got their bill in the mail with their new account number for them to register. So I don't know exactly when we're going to have all cycles completed, but I think it's within the next week here that we'll be through all the billing cycles, and everybody will have a chance to register it online.
Okay, well, with that, can I entertain a motion that we adjourn? From anyone?
motion to adjourn.
A second?
Second.
Okay. I vote aye.
Aye.
Is Jennifer still there? Maybe not.
She's on mute.
Okay. Believe the motion's passed. Okay, good meeting. Thank you, Craig. Good
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Good evening, everyone.
You. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.